Hi, Jules here, and welcome to Jules FM. My guest today is Airleigh Frigo, Australian aerial skier, Olympian, and someone whose path to the top of her sport looks nothing like the path she had planned. She didn't grow up dreaming of flying off a ski ramp. She was a gymnast until a flyer on a noticeboard changed everything. And what followed was an evolving love. Years of training, sacrifice, small goals building into something extraordinary, culminating in representing Australia at the Winter Olympics. But what I love most about Airleigh's story isn't the achievement. It's what it cost, what it taught her, and what she discovered in the moments the sport almost broke her. This is part one of a conversation about choosing a path that wasn't the plan and going anyway. Airleigh, thank you so much for joining me on Jules FM.
Thank you for having me.
It's so lovely to be talking to you right now. I watched you with such excitement for you during the Olympics. It was amazing. That experience must have been phenomenal, was it?
Yeah, it was probably one of the craziest experiences I've had in my life to date. Yeah, it was a week full of emotion and so many highs and also so many lows as well, personally. But yeah, it was overall amazing, and I honestly loved every bit of it. So yeah, it was really cool.
Tell me a little bit about the highs and lows.
Well, a high was definitely the Olympics itself. I made my Olympic debut, which was, something I've dreamed of for as long as I can remember. And yeah, finally being able to represent Australia was just a really amazing feeling. I don't think I really realized kind of the importance of representing my country was until I was
Mm.
there, and seeing all the other countries there and everyone else representing where they're from, just made me so proud. And yeah, I've never experienced anything like it. And yeah, and I guess the lows was a bit with my performance. I didn't quite hit the goals I was hoping to for my debut, but I tried my absolute best, and we had a couple of delays with the weather, and which always makes things a little more difficult, especially in winter sports, which are already difficult enough. But yeah, it was a little bit disappointing with my performance, but either way, I was really happy to have the experience, and yeah, just still reeling from it, I guess.
Yeah, I bet. Now, and I was going to come to this later, but I'd love to hear about it now. So when you weren't performing or things weren't going the way you wanted to, what do you tell yourself? Like, how do you come back from that? Or how do you face again, get up and face it all the next day?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. It's probably, one of the most mentally tough things you kind of have to work on as an
Mm.
athlete. Not every performance you have is going to be your best, even in World Cups and competitions leading into the Olympics. Like I had some really good competitions, and then again, some competitions I missed. And um, yeah, I mean, I work really closely with my sports psych, and we work a lot on being able to bounce back from those disappointments. And a lot of it is just being able to let it go, and
Mm.
not having it consume you. So, you're already on to the next competition. Like, there's no point thinking what happened in the last competition, because it's a new day. And it's also just the reality of sport, like, especially winter sport, where there's so many things that aren't necessarily in our control. So yeah, it's really, it's super hard. I think it's something that every winter athlete and athlete in general will always be working on, no matter, where they are at in their career. But yeah, you really got to dig deep, and kind of take away the emotion of it a bit. Like,
Mm.
have the emotion with it, feel the feelings, but then sort of say to yourself, okay, well, what's next? What's the next thing I need to do? And yeah, and like for the Olympics, obviously I didn't have a great individual event, but I was then a reserve for the team event, and it was having to turn that disappointment around because then I needed to be ready to step up in the team event if that was needed, which wasn't in the end, but I still was out there having to train, and yeah, I had to put all the emotion of the individual comp aside and step up for the team and be there for my teammates who were competing and celebrate with them and encourage them. And yeah, so it's difficult, but
Oh, I
it's
imagine.
something you're constantly working on, I guess.
And were you able to? Were you able to let the disappointment go? Do you feel like,
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, like, I think it took me a lot, like a bit of time. It's still only been about 2 months post
mm,
the Olympics, and for sure, I've gone over it in my head, and I've spoken to my team about it, and spoken to my sports psych, and have gotten a lot of support. And like the reality is, like as a high level athlete, it's you know it wasn't just another competition in a way, like it was the Olympics.
yeah,
So, I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, I'm over it. I'm
yeah,
completely, doesn't bother me anymore. But um, I've definitely shifted to accepting that that was the day and that was my performance. And just like I know that it was one day, and it's not a reflection on me and my entire athletic career. I had a really great lead up, a really great 2 seasons leading into the Olympics, and I think it comes from knowing your potential deep down and knowing what you can do that kind of pulls you out of that, like those what ifs or what could have been, and all of that, to just you know kind of move forward with it, and yeah, just keep going.
oh, look, I can only imagine how difficult it is. It's so public as well. You don't get to just have a bad day on your own. You get to
Yeah,
have a bad day in front of everyone for your country. Like it's a
yeah.
lot. The stakes are a lot higher. So I imagine it's really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the most difficult thing for me was I had all of my family there, and I'm a very family oriented person, and all I wanted to do was, show them my best. And my family are amazing. They're so supportive, and I could have done anything that day, and they were so happy for me. It didn't matter to them the place or the score or even the jump. It was the fact I was there. I was competing for Australia. I was at the Olympics. I was giving it a go, and that's all that mattered to me. But that's all that mattered to them. But of course, for me, I would have you know, I wanted to show them my best, and but yeah, it just wasn't meant to be that day, and that's okay. My parents, they were able to watch another competition, the last one actually leading into the Olympics, and I had a much better result that day. So yeah, I kind of like to think of that as they have seen me at my best, and I guess they've also seen me at my worst. So, and yeah, and that's sport, I guess.
That's it. And they know you and they love you regardless. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. Have you always wanted to be an aerial skier? Is this what you grew up dreaming about?
God, no.
Yeah.
No, I grew up doing gymnastics, like most aerial skiers who are recruited nowadays. And I love gymnastics. I did it for 10 years, but I knew I wasn't Olympic potential with it. I love doing the sport because I was able to do things, I guess, that people couldn't normally do, and that's what always drew me to like a sport like gymnastics. And then I had sort of heard of aerial skiing, but I'd never watched it. I'd never like really knew about it that much. But I was coaching. I'd finished gymnastics when I was in year 12, so 2017, and I there was about a 6 month period between finishing gymnastics and starting in aerials, which my club got pamphlets for the program, and they gave me a pamphlet pretty much and was like, "Oh, you should try this." And I looked at the pamphlet and I was like, "What is this?" Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it was kind of a situation of, am I going to try to go down this path? Like, I don't really know this sport. I have just finished 10 years of gymnastics. You know, am I ready to try something completely new that I've not really heard of, and then, start from scratch again? But I guess it was kind of, why not? And yeah, and then I sent in an application, and um, a couple of weeks later went to a trial, and then found myself with a scholarship for the
Wow.
program with the Victorian Institute of Sport. So yeah, the rest is kind of history.
And I have two questions from that. One, how did you know you weren't Olympic material for gymnastics?
I mean, I guess when I was competitive at gymnastics, and going to I was national level to about level 7, and if you were going to, progress to the Olympics, which it's already incredibly difficult to, I think, even qualify for the Olympics in gymnastics in Australia. You would have had to be like representing the state on state teams at least, going to national camps, training camps. And yeah, I just wasn't at that level. I was definitely competitive, um, and a part of, I guess, not really being able to pursue gymnastics maybe at a more competitive level was, I moved schools when I was in year 7. My school that I went to, which was in Melton locally, that shut down.
It did.
And I was
Which
forced
Airleigh and I
to,
were both at the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, a long time ago
Yeah.
now. Yeah, so that school shut down when I was midway through year 7.
Mm.
And it was actually really difficult to get into another school because there was obviously such a influx of students
Mm.
now. So I ended up at Ballarat Clarendon College in Ballarat, and that was about an hour drive from Melton every
Mm.
day, there and back. And then I moved gymnastics clubs to Eureka Gymnastics up there, and basically with living in Melton still and doing school in Ballarat and then gymnastics, I could only do so much in so many hours. And my dad would, he would drive, a 2 hour round trip 2 nights a week just to pick me
Wow.
up from gymnastics, and then I'd also do it Saturday mornings, and get the train there and back. But yeah, it was, I did what I could manage, and I think that's, yeah, how I sort of knew, like, gymnastics. I loved the competitiveness. I loved going to competitions, but it wasn't something that was going to lead to the Olympics for me, and that was okay. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I knew that, so it was, yeah, it was
Hmm.
fine.
And so once you started this aerial skiing, did you instantly fall in love with it, or did you love the challenge that came with it, and then did that love of it evolve, or have you just continued it because you were really good at it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely an evolving love. Aerials is very intense,
Mm.
and can be quite painful at times, both physically and emotionally, I guess. No, but it was, I kind of started out in the program, and you start out pretty much learning to ski. I'd already had some skiing experience from skiing with my family at Bulla, but it was more, I was definitely like a recreational skier. I didn't have great technique or anything, but I could get down the mountain and I loved skiing. So, and that when you first enter the program, it's pretty much just teaching you skiing skills. So, it wasn't till a year and a half in that I even started doing flips, and it wasn't until 2 years in where you start actually flipping on snow. So
Wow.
it's a very slow build up, and yeah, I think my love for it grew, and I loved being an athlete, and I think that's what kind of drew me to aerials, and drew me to wanting to keep pursuing it, because I've always been very goal oriented, and I think being an athlete, it's, you know, you can have big goals, small goals, all these different goals, and I think yeah, that's kind of what drew me in and kept the motivation to, yeah, see if all these small goals could then lead to my big goal of the Olympics, and it did.
I've been meaning to ask this. I've always thought this question, right? When I look at like BMX riders or anyone who's doing like crazy, scary stuff like aerial skiing, there's got to be a first time when you do that crazy jump or the whatever. Like, how does I know you lead up to it? I get that, but there's also got to be that first moment where you're like trying a new skill. Like, what is that like?
Oh, it's terrifying. Like I think people think that we're all like cool and calm, but no, like we are sometimes standing at the top, physically shaking from nerves, and yeah,
Oh,
I'll never forget I think the scariest time, which doesn't seem like it seems a bit disproportionate, I guess, but was doing like my first ever flip on snow, and it just like a single flip on the single kicker. It's like the very first flip you'll ever do on snow. And once you keep progressing, a single flip on snow is your easiest trick. But when you're
yeah.
first starting, that I remember I was in Finland, and it was my season to do my first ever flips on snow, and I could barely talk to the people around me because I was so nervous,
Yeah.
and it's honestly it's actually it's such an all or nothing sport.
Yeah.
And I think something I said to myself, because I was so nervous that just this one flip, um and I think I said to myself, well, like, I either go and flip or I go home, because if like
Yeah.
if I can't turn my skis and go, then I can't do this sport. It's simple. So I think kind of having that in mind, and you just kind of have to go. And I mean, it was all fine. And once you do the first one, I think your muscle memory kicks in, your training kicks in, and everything was completely fine. But yeah, I mean, you've got to make a choice. Like, there's only one way
Mm.
down, and
Yep.
this is the way. And you can either do it or you don't. And
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
but it is scary. It's
yeah.
terrifying. Yeah.
Um, when you started this, I mean, you were 18 then because you just finished your 12 and you got into aerials. Like, that's a massive, massive commitment. What kind of did you have to give up to pursue this? Like, what kind of trade-off was there for a teenager?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was pretty used to having to give up um, a lot of social things throughout my teen years with gymnastics. Like, I trained every weekend. So, if something was on like a Friday night, then I probably couldn't have gone to it, or, Saturday day probably couldn't have gone to it. And same with competition season. During competitions, they would be on either a Saturday or a Sunday. So, there's definitely a lot of missed parties, as any like
Mm.
athletic teenager would tell you, missed, family gatherings and whatnot. But it was probably nothing in comparison to how much I've probably sacrificed with aerials. And um, yeah, it's a lot. Like I I obviously, well, from Melbourne and moved to Brisbane, so just um, flying home just for my cousin's birthday or something is wasn't really an option during full training. So I've had to give up seeing a lot of my family's birthdays or even special holidays, Christmases. I've been overseas for I think it was about I think I had 4 Christmases overseas till
Wow.
I finally, yeah, 3 or 4, I can't remember, but 3 or 4 in a row until I got to come home for Christmas between competitions and yeah, like just a lot. And another sacrifice was with my education as well. I went to university. I did a Bachelor of Radiation Science, which I'm very proud of and
Yeah.
really enjoyed doing at the time. But it came to a point where I was I graduated my bachelor's, and there was a opportunity for me to do a master's course, and I'd gotten accepted into the master's course. And I had to, well, I didn't have to, but I chose to decline it to pursue aerials. So that was a bit of a fork in the road for me because with the master's course, it was obviously that was going to be full time clinic placement for the degree I wanted to do,
Yeah.
which just wasn't going to be possible with full time training. So that was probably one of the biggest sacrifices I made for aerials was, yeah, not pursuing further uni study to pursue my Olympic dream. But I really don't have any regrets with it. So yeah.
That was going to be my next question. Did you ever question it? Did you ever have doubts that you're like, oh, have I made the right choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in like athletes in high level sport, there's always been like a season or a period where you're like, why am I here? Why,
Mm.
what am I doing? I haven't really gotten anywhere this season, or
Yeah.
haven't achieved what I thought I would achieve by now. Um and there was definitely a breaking point for me where I wasn't in like a I wasn't fully enjoying the program, and I think being able to enjoy what you do is a huge part of your motivation for it, and you know being able to show up as your best self every day. And there was definitely a point where I was like, oh, I don't know, but there was always just a a bigger voice, I guess, in the back of my head that was just like, oh, you can't stop now. Like there's you if you can get through all of this to this point, then there like you just can't stop now. So I think yeah, there was always that kind of inner drive of and maybe stubbornness that yeah, I was like, no, I've got to find out where this can lead.
And what was the goal? What is the goal? I mean, are you aiming for some one particular thing?
I mean, the Olympics was definitely that was my goal
Yeah.
for, the last 4 years or 8 years,
Yeah.
of of doing aerials. And then but the goals also started to shift. I think as I got older, the goals sort of came more to my overall like health and how I approach sport because yeah, and I sort of tried to make like a very conscious decision, 4 years ago coming into this Olympic cycle because anything can happen with the Olympics and in the lead up, and aerials is pretty dangerous at the best of
Mm.
times, and it's never guaranteed. And I knew that, and I made a really conscious decision for my. Obviously, I've had the overriding goal of the Olympics, but it was to enjoy what I was doing. It was to turn up every day, wanting to be slightly better in some way. I wanted to be better with my, strength and conditioning. I wanted to be better with my nutrition. I wanted to be just a more rounded athlete. And I think, 4 years can feel like a long time, especially when you're right at the start.
Yeah.
And, I really had to break down that bigger goal into these little goals of, what do I want to get out of this as a person? Not just an athlete trying to go to the Olympics, but yeah, for my like everyday life and being and future self and whatnot. And yeah, I think once I did that, it made the journey. It was it's cliche, but it made the journey a lot more enjoyable and worth it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. And what are your non-negotiables then every day? Like, are there some things that ritualistically you just know I am going to tick these boxes?
Yeah, it's I guess every day when I'm in like a training setting, like I'm working out every day, that's kind of like a
Mm.
non-negotiable as an athlete. And, it's definitely important to take breaks when like that it's necessary, and to avoid, overtraining and whatnot. But I definitely think that's become more of a non-negotiable for me, especially
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, is, even if it's just, it's a day off and I need to go take a walk around the block, or do some yoga or something. I think I have grown to really appreciate moving my body, whether it's, yeah, something like I just need to take a walk, all the way to I'm doing the hardest cardio session of my life with my team and my S&C coach, and trying to do that. So I'd say that's probably a bit of a non-negotiable. I'm trying to think
And what about
what
like
else would be.
recovery or diets or any of that sort of stuff? Are there any non-negotiables in those?
Yeah, I mean, I work closely with my nutritionist. I had a lot of goals in that area in the last cycle to kind of really understand my habits,
Yeah.
starting off with, and then, you know, starting to tweak them and change them to get the results that I wanted. And yeah, I worked really closely with her, and, trying to focus on not being perfect in a way, but making, the right changes, which, is always can be a struggle. But once you start doing it and, kind of get a bit of consistency with it, it definitely gets a bit easier.
Mm.
I wouldn't say I have any like hardcore non-negotiables with
Okay.
like my diet,
Yeah.
but definitely focusing on the appropriate like fueling around training is, well, that would be like a
Yeah.
non-negotiable. And yeah, and with recovery, I love foam rolling, so I'd say that would be my non-negotiable.
So is my husband.
Always, yeah, always foam roll. I
Yeah.
love foam rolling. So
Thanks for listening to part one with Airleigh. Make sure you listen for part two. That's where Airleigh talks to us about when things got tough mentally, emotionally, physically, how she had to make a decision, what that decision was, and how it changed the way she looked at her future. Until next time.